Entrepreneurship is a continuous selection process. And if you ain't got the will, you ain't going to make it, brother.
I didn't know what purpose looked like at that point.
A lot of people, they don't believe in themselves. I don't care if you're running $100,000 business, $1 million business, a 50 million, 100 million, $1 billion business. Every single one of them has their own trials and tribulations on a daily basis.
We are joined by Jamie Tilke, the co-founder of Pineland Express, a hospitality company, and the Mil2Ent Mastermind.
There's risk with everything. I don't give a shit if it's the stock market or the bank, or there's risk, varying degrees of, but as we know, with greater risk comes greater reward.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Die Hard Entrepreneur Stories. I am your host, Devin Ramos, and today we are joined by Jamie Tilke, the co-founder of Pineland Express, a hospitality company, and the Mil2Ent Mastermind. He is a dynamic entrepreneur, real estate investor, leader, and former special operations soldier. Jamie served in the 75th Ranger Regiment and Special Forces during a 25-year military career where he developed leadership and strategic skills that would later fuel his entrepreneurial success. In just 36 months, he went from 6 figures in credit card debt to managing a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio. Jamie's story is filled with authentic lessons about mindset, perseverance, and the importance of relationship capital. Jamie, man, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm grateful to be here and appreciate the invitation, man.
Thank you. So Jamie, man, as we get into this, you have probably the longest military career of any guest that I've interviewed so far. So I would love to know what precluded that. Like, what came before that? Did you grow up like that was the thing you're going to do? I know that's the way for some people. Or tell me a little bit about that, man.
No, dude, it was the exact opposite. My brother actually joined the military. He's 4 years older than me. He went to the Navy. And he tried to get me to go in, and I was like, "You're smoking crack, brother." I'm like, "That shit ain't happening." I'm like, "There's no way in hell that I am going to work for somebody that dictates every single thing that I do, and I have no latitude to make decisions on my own." And then fast forward 4 years, and I joined the Army and became a Ranger, which is like the worst fucking place I could have went as far as having no latitude to make decisions on your own.
Yeah.
But I think it's funny because recently, several times I've thought about like my whole job career history, and it seems consistently somewhere's around the 2-year mark, I would change what I was doing. And it's because I was bored, right? And it's like, and so I wanted to do something nice. I did everything from, I was going to be a rock star. I worked in a music store. I worked in a grocery store. I worked as in a paper company, doing manufacturing books and printing all this other stuff out. And I was an over-the-road truck driver. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And then I joined the military. And I think the reason why the military worked for me was because there was changes within your career during that duration. So it allowed, new things to come into this perspective. But I was 6 years in the Army, and I had been 3 separate MOSs. So think about that.
Yeah,
so
dude.
You can't do that most other places. And I think, I went from 11 Bravo infantry to military intelligence, which lasted 11 months. And then I went special forces and then eventually went warrant officer. Right. So, and as you know, within the special forces, Green Beret, there's different positions there. So I was able to jump around a lot. And I think that kept it vibrant. And so the short answer to your question is no, there was no plan on doing it. But, and the one thing that I always say that I think, some people, and maybe it rubs wrong, but if I'm being brutally honest, right, which I told you before we came on, that's what I am, is I didn't join the military because I was a patriot. I joined the military because I watched Rambo, and I was like, that's fucking cool. Like, I want to be that guy. And I went to the recruiters and told them that, and they were like, boom, we got one, hook, line, and sinker, reel that guy in. But during the time of going into the Ranger Battalion, arguably the world's most elite light infantry unit, I became a patriot, right? I understood what it means to serve your country. And then from there, I was like, you've heard this so many times, but being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, either consciously or subconsciously drives a lot of us, right? I think that's why so many veterans suffer from depression when they get out, is because they had a purpose and it was defined, and they had brotherhood and camaraderie, and everybody was rowing in the same direction, even if you didn't get along that day. And then you leave there and it's gone. And it's very hard to replicate in the corporate world. I know very few people that have told me about any type of job whatsoever that's even come close to the type of camaraderie that you get when you're working in a niche like that. And then obviously, as you well know, when you go into special operations.
Yeah, man. I totally agree with that. And it's so funny because before we were coming on here, you were describing yourself in certain ways. And I was like, man, you're describing me. The similarities of entrepreneurs, I think, are so funny. And I've told this story before, but I remember, there's certain very specific moments that I recollect in my years of life. And I remember back maybe 5 years ago, before I started becoming an entrepreneur or anything like that, I was talking with a friend that was headed down that path. And I was thinking about, am I going to get out of the military? Am I not? And I remember like really sitting there. I was downstairs on my couch and I was really sitting there thinking through like, okay, here's what a day's like now for Devin. What is a day like for Devin when he gets out of the Army? And no joke, like I like shuddered and like my stomach hurt because I was like, man, I want that. But like, what will I do? Like, and I always thought it was like I was unorganized, or I didn't really understand what I wanted, or like there was all these different things that I would like describe what was happening. But more and more as I recollect on that, I think it was that thought of like loss of serving our country. I fortunately had the pleasure of doing some targeting, so like hunting bad guys. Like, I really found a lot of purpose in that. And I think that's what I didn't know what purpose looked like at that point. And I think that's really what made me feel so uneasy, So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, 100%, man. I definitely relate to that.
Cool, Jamie. So, man, you've had a pretty awesome career. It sounds like from my perspective. And what I also hear is you've had this. Jamie hasn't changed, and Jamie always was like, you're now in the place you always needed to be, right? An entrepreneur. Like, we were just talking about some of your awesome vision and, casting that vision and getting people to implement it and like all those sorts of things. Where did that really come into play for you along the way? Like, did you have any like small business ventures here and there on the side throughout your military career, or what point did that really kick off for you?
I think that's a great question. And the reason why I think it's a great question is because, yet again, full transparency, I don't think I really understood A, what I was capable of, B, believed that I was truly capable of that, and 3, fully understood what that capability was, right? And that happened to me, and I've told this story before, happened to me right around 2016, right? So I've been in the Army at that time for 21 years. And for the first time, and this will make sense to you and to some listeners, but for some people it may not, I was just afforded the opportunity to do a lot of singleton operations where I was going abroad. Yeah. And representing on behalf of our organization holistically. But for the first time, I was given an assignment where somebody not only truly believed that I was the right guy for the job, but did so to the extent that I was afforded probably the most latitude that I had ever gotten in any type of military assignment whatsoever. And so at the height of that moment, I don't want to over embellish the story and make it sound like I was the single dude. But to some extent, I was the dude representing and being supported by a multitude of people. And I was literally rekindling and orchestrating, that has negative connotations. But anyway, the relationship rebuilding between a 2-star general and the United States ambassador. And I just had this moment where I was sitting in my hotel room in Hawaii and I was just like, what the fuck, man? I'm like, if this broke ass dude that grew up poor as shit in upstate New York is literally the guy that's the link pin and making this stuff happen. And at that moment, not to be arrogant, but was getting very high accolades from a multitude of different people saying, bro, I don't know how you're doing what you're doing, but keep doing what you're doing. I'm like, why am I not building something for ourselves? And I've always had visionary ideas. And my sister's probably the first person that I ever remember that was like, you're a visionary. And when she said it, to be honest, I didn't even know what that really meant. Obviously, I understand the word, but I didn't really fully understand what that meant. And I was like, okay, whatever. But the more and more that things started to happen, the more I realized like my strength, one of my gifts is the fact that it's easy for me to see what other people can't see, right? I'm that person that walks into a house that most people say bulldoze it. And I'm like, stop, hold your horses. This is going to be fucking amazing, right? Which is what happened with Pineland Express. I mean, that place should have been demoed. Those houses were borderline dilapidated. The only reason why they weren't is because they were brick. If they were wood, they would have been done already. And everybody was just like, dude, no, it's not going to happen. But, you know, we took a $300,000 property and turned it into a $2.27 million property. And everybody told me, I love your enthusiasm. I love your motivation, or your vision, but it's never going to happen. I'm like, it's going to happen.
I love that. Was that specific thing, turning over Pineland Express, like acquiring it, doing that, was that like sort of your first venture?
The reality is I've always been an entrepreneur. I didn't really know, I didn't even know that word. It was way too big for my vocabulary. And the second thing is that I didn't understand what that meant as well. But I was in 7th grade, and most of my close friends still remember this. I would buy boxes of Hubba Bubba Bubba Gum, which came 5 in a pack. And I would buy them typically 4 or 5 packs for $1. And then I would sell a piece of bubble gum for $1 in school. And people were paying for that. So I didn't even know what the word arbitrage was. That's essentially what I was doing, right? And then there was a couple kids in school. I told you I was super poor, like definitely at the bottom of the totem pole of wealth. And there was other rich kids that would be like, one kid came up to me, he's like, hey, I'll give you $40 for all of it. I was like, done. I come home, my mom's like, where'd you get that $40 from?
Go do it again.
I'm sorry, Mom. And she's like, I don't believe you. Cause it was too much money. I mean, this is 1987, or something like that. So anyway, it started a long time ago, brother. It's always been in me, but I never slowed down enough to realize that I had it. And I've just gotten to the point, man, where like, I got it. Like, this is my thing. Let's do it.
I love that, brother. Oh man, that is so amazing.
There's a lot more I can say, but I don't want to spend 3 minutes here trying to choke through a bunch of. The reason why it's emotional is because a lot of people, they don't believe in themselves,
Yeah. Yep. And having been there and looking back, for me at least, I'm sharing mine, but like looking back, it's like a travesty. You're like, gosh.
That's why I'm so fucking passionate about investing in other people. The problem is, as my wife always says, she's like, I love that you care about other people, but you do it to such an extent that you're willing to sacrifice everything for those people, to include like my immediate family's general well-being. But the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because of exactly what you said. If somebody had grabbed a hold of me and said to me when I was 12, 14, 18, 24, like, bro, shut the fuck up and listen to me for a second. I'm telling you, you are incredibly and capable of great things. But instead, it was me on a self-discovery mission and then trying to believe in yourself, right? And even though you would have wins, you're like, damn, like one of the first big wins that really hit me was learning Chinese in 1999. It was 20 people in the class. And then we got down to 9. And I'm like, wait, maybe I'm not fucking dumb. Cause at that point, I didn't think I was, at that point, I didn't think I was dumb. Like I'm like not intelligent at all, but I didn't think I had the level of intellectual capacity that I do, because I think I grew up in such poverty circumstances with nobody cheerleading that it's like, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. Right. And so through all those other successes and stuff, eventually you get the confidence, but that happened a day late and a dollar short. So going back, I mean, not really, because I'm here with you today, right? And I'm telling my story. All that said, I'm like this with everybody, but I have 5 kids, right? And 3 of them are in the service. One's married to another one, and then we have a 12-year-old. And so I told him, I'm like, look, I'm your advisor. I'm your dad, but I'm your advisor. And I said, I'm not going to dictate shit to you. You want information? I'll give it to you. Here's the one thing that's a non-negotiable for me. I cannot and will not. I absolutely refuse you to allow you to have the financial difficulties that I did. And I told my kids, I said, in my humble opinion, there's 2 things in life that will drive you absolutely batshit crazy if you don't get them under control. And that's finances and relationships. And if I can help you be 100% spot on your finances, then that means the only thing that you have to worry about is whether or not you do or do not want to hang out with one particular person and or a group of people. And so when my daughter, and I've told this story before, I'll keep this one brief as well, is my daughter texts me 3.5 years ago and says to me, Dad, I'm PCS into Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I'm going to get this apartment with these 2 other girls. And I'm so excited, and sends me a screenshot. It's $995. I said, no, you're not. She's like, what? I'm like, you're going to house hack. She said, house what? I'm like, shut up. Get over here. Let's talk about this thing. Yeah. And so I said, we're going to buy you a house with your VA benefits, and you're going to rent those same 2 rooms out in that house that you would have paid somebody else to build their financial future. Right. Man. And she did it. And so she bought that house. It was listed for $99. I got it for $95 plus a new roof. This was pre-pandemic. So it was still a buyer's market. And she did it with $0 down, zeros. And to this day, she's never spent 1 penny on that property. Why? Because her PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance was $690. She rented out 1 room for $550 or $500, the other one for $350. Right. So do the math. That's $850. She didn't pay for shit. Yeah. And
she lived there.
And she lived there. And she got the mortgage paid. Fast forward, just out of shits and giggles, just before Christmas, I was like, hey, have you checked out what that house is worth? And she said, no. I said, let me check it out for you. So I get back and I say to her, now me, it's a minimum. It's $200K, if not probably leaning closer to $220, really. So she gained over $100,000 of equity in 3 years and never paid a single penny. So back to what you were originally talking about. I am incredibly passionate about helping people who are willing to help themselves. I literally just got done talking to a Marine that I'm going to try to help that's coming here to Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I said to him, here's the deal, brother. If you will listen, I can make you a millionaire by the time you're 30. I guarantee it. But I am not going to put you in my rucksack and carry your ass. Because here's the problem. A bunch of people want what we want and what we're trying to do, which is financial freedom and financial independence. But the problem is nobody's willing to do the motherfucking work. You know what I mean? And I consistently say within our military to entrepreneur group is that being an entrepreneur is, in my opinion, it's almost more difficult in the selection process to become a Green Beret. And that's why so many people don't make it. So for those people listening to this podcast that have no idea, selection process to be a Green Beret is roughly 26 days. People tap out on day 1, they tap out on day 2, tap tap out in day 3. And so I'll finish with this comment and hand the mic back over to you, brother. But I said to them, I said, listen, here's the deal. I said, entrepreneurship is a selection process. Entrepreneurship is a selection process. And most of you will not get selected. That's the harsh reality. Because number one, fear is going to inhibit the vast majority of those people from ever even entering into the arena. Cool. Done. Go back to your W-2 job. I ain't hating. That's what's for you. Good. I'm glad. For the remainder that do take the thing, they're going to run into one obstacle and they're like, peace and chicken grease. I'm out here like a belly button. Let's go back to fucking W-2. Problem 3. But much like we had to do in order to become, Green Berets is, are you willing to get past each and every obstacle in order to get to the end objective, which is I want to be this. And in this case of what we're talking about with entrepreneurship is I want to be financially free and potentially build generational wealth for my own family. But it is a struggle each and every single day, which is why I talk about a lot of the negative shit, because I want people to know it's hard. But here's a good news story. If you don't quit, you'll get it. Period. Consistency.
First off, so many golden nuggets in there. I was actually thinking about this morning. It kind of hit me really weird. But you gave this picture of like selection and compared it to entrepreneurship. And I literally was thinking that this morning. Let me tell you what happened. So I had this really important thing happen to our family yesterday. We closed on this property as a part of our vision. We've been wanting to close on a property like this for a while. So it was like huge milestone for our family. And I made a post on Facebook and all these people are coming out of the woodwork saying like, hey, congrats. Like, this is amazing. And as I'm seeing some of these names, I was like, oh. And these are fellow entrepreneurs that had, this type of business, that type of business, used to flip real estate. And like all of them, not all of them, but a large majority of them, I'm like, I kind of I didn't forget about them, but I didn't realize like they quit or they fell off at some point. They tapped out. Mm-hmm. And so, Jamie, this was my thought. I'm sitting on my couch this morning, journaling, and I was like, oh my God, this feels like selection in the Q course, mm-hmm. where you build these relationships and you Dave's a cool dude. John's a cool dude. You guys are talking about like what's happening in the Middle East. And I want to go to 5th group. I want to go to 7th group. And we're going to go out there and do all this stuff. And then like all of a sudden you're in the chow line. You're like, yo, dude, what happened to Dave? Where's John at? And it's like, dude, they tapped out. Mm-hmm. And I just remember by the time getting to the end of both selection, the Q course, but first for selection, I remember just being like, wow. And there was some guys that I was like, I really did not see that guy tapping out. And on the one hand, I sort of was like, wow, like, well, I didn't. But on the other hand, I was kind of like, man, I better put my head down and keep going. Cause I thought that dude was going to be wearing a green beret. And like, I thought he was going to be wearing one before me. So I better keep my head down and keep moving forward. And the same with the Q course, man. Like, it's so long. You just show up to formation or you come back from a school and all of a sudden you're like, where's so-and-so? Like, wait, what? And that's exactly how I feel as an entrepreneur right now in this moment. So I think it's so crazy that you brought that up. Now, all that to say, not just that that's cool, but dude, it's freaking hard, man. And I think at least for me, one of the things I'm learning is like, set the expectation and embrace it. And then take it a step further and enjoy it. Because honestly, without it, I wouldn't feel as alive as I feel. And I'm sure you could probably say the same. And that's why we're entrepreneurs, You
know what? I just thought about something. First of all, I'm turning that into a t-shirt. I already told Warsaw and those guys that entrepreneurship is a selection process. But as I'm listening to you, retell your version of it, it just hit me. And that is the answer to your question is this. Entrepreneurship is a selection process that never ends. It doesn't fucking end.
That's true.
We know that when we were trying to be Green Berets, it ends in 26 days. If you make it and you are voted into, then guess what? You get to don the Green Beret. But entrepreneurship is a selection process and it doesn't matter where you are at. I don't care if you're running $100,000 business, $1 million business, a 50 million, 100 million, $1 billion business. Every single one of them has their own trials and tribulations on a daily basis. And they make a cognitive decision that I'm going to wake the fuck up, put my pants on, and continue the mission. But most people, they're like, I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this shit. I don't want to. Some of the people that come to me, I tell them, I said, you know how many times I want to quit in the last month? Probably 12. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, full open kimono transparency, as we like to say in the Asian culture, is right now, I'm in a season of shit right now, brother. Right? I mean, I don't know if I'm going to make it through the next 30 days, but I believe I will. And I'm going to continue to row until they tell me you are a 26-day non-select, or in this case, you're a non-select in perpetuity. I'm going to keep fucking going. And even if I fall off, to be quite frank, I'm probably just going to get back up and try for another one. So entrepreneurship is a continuous selection process. And if you ain't got the will, you ain't going to make it, brother. You ain't going to milk it. In fact, let me leave your listeners with this one key piece of information. There's tons of things we could say about this, right? You can never cover all the facets of this. But if somebody's listening to this particular portion of your podcast show and asking them, say, okay, great insight, guys, what's the answer? In my humble opinion, the number one thing is, as Jim Rohn says, you are the total sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And so you need to be very cognitive of who your inner circle is with, because as every entrepreneur understands, in other words, people that truly took the leap of faith, jumped off the proverbial cliff, and are now trying to stay buoyant in the water, is that you are going to have a lot of negative Nancy's. You're going to have a lot of woe is me, the sky is falling, you know, victimhood mentality, people that don't want to look. Here's the deal is you got to be around people that are cheerleading for you. You got to be people that are past you, people that are like, understand what it feels like. Right. And so that you can have that support mechanism, because when you're in those really low positions, for a lot of people, mentally, emotionally, it's very difficult to get past those things. Right. But you have to have something that drives us, just the same way that we did when we went through the selection process. You know, really quick, man, I will never forget. I don't know when you went through selection. I went through in 2003.
Nice. About a decade before me. So little less.
So I don't know if they still had the long walk at the end of it.
Do they?
So listen, here's the thing. True story, man. I was so concerned that I wasn't going to make it. Right. You had 48 hours. And I said, I had gotten like my second or third point, and then I'm like, I'm just going to rest for like 10 minutes. And I think I fell asleep for like an hour, and I woke up frantic as shit. And I was like, I'm never going to make it. And I just started moving. As I went to my point number 5, and I got it to go to number 6, which I was fairly certain was my final destination, I was passing a guy when I was probably 2 miles away from finishing. And he was limping like Igor in freaking the Disney movie. And I was like, bro, you know, you're not supposed to talk, but I wasn't looking at him. I was like, bro, where are you going? He said, I'm on point number 2. And you could just tell in his face, he was so defeated. And I didn't say this, of course, but in my mind, I'm like, there's no fucking way. Dude can't make it, man. So I'm telling that story because what I'm saying is, in entrepreneurship, if that guy had maybe had somebody next to him saying, come on, man, keep going, his likelihood of succeeding would be exponentially greater. But for most people, they don't. And they just have all these people in their circle that are really negative and telling them it's not possible. Why would you want to do that? Go get a job.
Absolutely agree with you. And I love your quote there. Let me know when you make a t-shirt so I can buy one. But entrepreneurship is a selection process that never ends. I totally agree. And I think just to add to that a little bit, the goal is to wake up to see tomorrow. Like, that's it. Yeah. That's it, man. Like you said, you're like, man, I'm in this position where I feel like 30 days from now, I might not make it, but I ain't worried. Like, I'm just worried about today and tomorrow. And like, we know you'll be good. Whatever happens, man, you'll either bounce back or you'll figure something out, as we do. And, you know, it'll correct itself for a moment. And then at some point in the future, you'll be growing and you'll be in that position again. And it'll just look different. So,
and for all your listeners out there that have served in any capacity and believe in the fact that America is an incredible country that was founded on great principles, and that most of us woke up every single day just wanting to know that we played a small part in contributing to our children's children being able to have those same type of life things. Much like we worked for that end goal in entrepreneurship, it's about freedom from financial stress. That's it, right? And that's a different thing for every single person. One person may net $10,000 a month and they are happier than a pig in poop, right? Another dude's like, I need 25K a month, 50K a month, 100K a month. It doesn't matter. Everybody has their own thing. So it's not about comparing ourselves to the next person. I'm just simply saying this. Entrepreneurship can bring a level of freedom that you just can't find anywhere else.
I absolutely agree, man. I love that. Some wise words there. Jamie, so got a little bit of your military background. If you would, for me, tell me a little bit about like what that pivotal moment was where you were like, hey, I'm going to get out of the Army. Or I guess maybe for you it's a little different because you knew you were going to get out. You knew you'd retire at some point. But I guess my real question is, at what point was it certain in your mind that you were going to get out and not work for anybody ever again, and you were going to continue to pursue entrepreneurship, no matter what type of business or what it looks like?
It was the moment that I described to you about 15 minutes ago.
That one. Okay.
And I was working in Malaysia and I had my moment. You know, up to that point, I had had multiple conversations with my wife. I was 24 years in. I was a CW3. Not to get cocky, but I was fairly certain I would get CW4. Again, I had some pretty solid OERs. I wasn't, you know, as long as I stayed on the same path, you know. And so I told her, I said, look, here's our options. We can get out, or I can stay in for 30 and I will get 75% of my pay for the rest of my life. And I said, we can live in probably 90 to 95% of the United States of America comfortably. Yeah. No yachts,
just
no
on
private,
that.
no private jets, no private chefs, but I'm not going to worry about whether or not you can go buy blueberries tomorrow. Like, we're good, you know? And so what do we want to do? But back to one of your earlier comments about what you suspected based on looking into my background in our initial conversations, what I realized is that's not me, man. I don't know about you, but I talked to a bunch of my military buddies that are like, dude, I look forward to that retirement day. And I'm like, really? How so? And they're like, I just can't wait to grab my fishing pole and sit on the bank. And I was like, dude, that's not me, man.
Nah,
I'm not hating. I genuinely mean this. If that brings you joy, awesome. I'm so happy for you. But because the way my mind works and because I'm so invigorated about the vision of a lot of things that cross through my mind, I can't be that guy. And I don't know if I ever will be, honestly. I think I can pull back. Maybe I don't need to be in fifth gear all day long. Maybe I can go down to third, but I'm just never going to be that guy that's just sitting there, and content, because it would drive me absolutely batshit crazy. So anyway, back to your question. It was that moment in Malaysia. I woke up one morning after I had gotten back, and we PCS back to the States because I was gone 2 years back to back over 300 days. And my wife was like, "Just come on, man. Like, when are we going to get a little bit of stability?" And so as I tell this story to other people, she came out one morning. I was sitting on the sofa. It was 7:30 in the morning. And I was like, we're going to be real estate millionaires. And she's like, shut the fuck up. She's like, we literally have $5 in Navy Federal Credit Union. You can't take me to Taco Bell. We have $127,000 in credit card debt. How the hell do you propose that we're going to do that? And I said to her, I'm going to sell the only thing we have. She said, what's that? I said, I'm going to sell this guy. She's like, what does that mean? And I said, listen, I have the vision. I have the tenacity, the perseverance, the grit, the grind, the determination, everything, all those sexy adjective words that everybody needs to describe to complete any mission in life. And I said, I'm going to use me to do that. And so I pitched my concept. And my concept was, I want upscale accommodations for military here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I pitched it to a dozen people, brother. And everybody's like, I love your passion. I love your vision, your motivation. It's not going to work. And my response was, it is going to work. And they're like, how are you so certain? I was like, because I know it's going to work. And so it was in that moment, right? I mean, there was a bunch of different culminating moments, but it was that moment specifically at the point where we made the decision that I'm getting out. We're all in. Let's do this thing. And as you kind of told, in 18 months, because here's the other thing, during that same conversation, I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm going to pay off our debt in 12 months. She's like, yet again, she's like, shut up. And I shouldn't have put the F word in her mouth before because she doesn't really swear. But anyways, I did because it's my bad habit. So anyways, she's like, it's not going to happen. So I'm like, okay. Spoiler, I did not pay off the $127,000 in debt, but I did pay off $75,000, right? So we were $50,000 away from being completely debt free. Still fairly impressive in a 12-month period of time. But by 18 months, I had paid off 100% of the debt. And within 36 months, we had a portfolio worth $6 million. And so for a lot of the people out there, yes, it's worth $6 million. Just to be clear, because I don't want to embellish this story, that doesn't mean I had, $3 million sitting in the bank. You know that as a real estate investor. Some people may not know that. I was playing the long game, which is really what real estate is mostly about, is the long game. Is like, okay, I'm sitting on a $6 million portfolio. What will that be worth in 10, 15, or 20 years? Will it be worth 10, 15, 20 million? I don't know. And then that's the long game. That's when you're checking out and tapping out. So anyway, that was a little bit lengthy, but I was just piecing the puzzle that we've been talking to. That was the moment in time that we made the decision, and we went all in. And then that's when we started Pineland Express.
Oh man, I love that. Well, Jamie, I want to dig into Pineland Express, what it is, how you guys went about it, some of the major learning points. But before we do that, you had mentioned your credit card debt. I mean, if you don't mind, can you share what manifests that debt and anything you kind of learned from that? So if anybody else is in that situation right now, they might be able to learn a thing or two from you.
Well, as Robert Kiyosaki and many people talk about, but I'll give the credit for him in his book because that's where it came to from me. Everybody's like, oh, so Rich Dad, Poor Dad, should I read the book? Yeah, you should read the book. And here it is. I'm going to give it to you in 5 seconds. If your money's not making your money, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of us are not educated or mentored on how money works. And I definitely wasn't. I grew up, as I've already alluded to multiple times, I grew up super poor. At one point, didn't even live in a house, right? Things like that, cars, tents, stuff like that. And so when I finally had access to money, I had no idea how to handle it. And so the only thing going through my brain, brother, was like, I can buy shit, right? And I was like, well, I'm going to fucking buy everything that I want then. And then you get introduced to credit cards and then you're like, shit, I don't have to wait. I can buy it right now. And then I'll figure out how to pay for it later. Wrong. Yeah. I mean, it's wrong as in that's absolutely not the method. And so honestly, I tell people I'm not sharing this with people because I'm proud of it. It's incredibly embarrassing. I'm sharing it to your point so that other people don't follow suit. But you probably couldn't name a retail store credit card that I didn't have at the time. Not to include a multitude of different Visas and MasterCards. Honestly, I don't even know how I was able to get that much. I mean, it's silly because my pay definitely didn't support it. And we were absolutely the epitome of living paycheck to paycheck. And so I was living above my means. And so my advice to anybody is don't do that. And read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because it's broken down in very simple terms, right? Another phenomenal book is The Richest Man in Babylon, right? And again, I'll break it down to most people. Take 10% of your money. If you're in a bad financial situation and you owe $5,000, $15,000, $50,000, take 10% of your money, call your debtors and tell them, I'm going to pay my shit off. I can't pay you it all right now and I can't pay you the full amount, but I'm going to pay it off and I'll be consistent. And this is what I'm going to give you. And then you take another 10% of that money and that's for you. And then you take another 10% of that money and you invest that money. And then the rest of the money is what you live off until you un-F yourself and get in the right fiscal place. Then from there, you can start readjusting those numbers, right? But if you do that and I know it's an overutilized phrase. My wife and I were just talking about it at breakfast. Consistency is key. The problem is, just like every habit forming, bad and good, is that most people don't do it long enough to become a habit, right? So if you do it,
true.
Then you can put yourself in a great financial situation. So like my daughter right now, I'll leave you with this one because there's so much I could say about this, but I know we're limited on time. So my daughter's 12 years old and we give her allowance and we ask her to do certain things. But here's what I do. She has 3 separate bank accounts. When the money comes into her account, if I give her $100, just example, 20% goes towards investing, 50% goes into long-term savings, and in the remainder, 30% is for hers, and she can spend it on whatever she wants, obviously with our parental approval. I told her, I'm not going to let you spend $30 fucking on bouncy balls. Sorry. You can get one, but you're not going to buy $30 worth of them. So, and here's the key I want to say, and this came from a little clip that probably many people have seen online. When Shaquille O'Neal was asked during an interview how he got to his financial wealth, he said, I was taught that if you can live off of 50% of your income, that you can then build generational wealth. He said, I took it to another step and I divided the 50 remaining percent, and he rips a piece of paper in half and he says, and I live off of 25% and 75%, which is why I did the formula that I just did with my daughter, right? She's allowed 30%, 70% of it. And if I can train her right now to know what it's like to live off of only 30% of your, I've set her up for success. So when she's making 100 G's a year, she'll live off of 30 until she can make more. And when she's making $1 million a year, she'll live off of $300,000 while that other $700,000 is working like a mother. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, man. And a $300,000 lifestyle's pretty freaking decent, dude.
Oh, that's very comfortable.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
aside from the uber wealthy, I don't think anybody would reject that lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean,
that includes fine dining. That includes traveling to most places that you want to do. As long as you're not, going to the bougie to the 10th degree, $300,000 in most cities other than maybe LA, New York City, are going to do you just fine.
I love that, man. Oh man, I'm so glad you said that. Such wise words and such good, good things for our audience and listeners. And even for me, man, I love hearing this stuff. Love hearing how you're managing your kids' money, or helping teach them how to manage their money is a better way to say it, because that's what you're actually doing. I love that, man. Cool. All right, Jamie, let's dig in here to Pineland Express, man. You had that vision, right? And you'd mentioned pitching it, like you said, 12 times. So I take it you were pitching it to other investors or maybe partners or something like that.
Yeah.
Man, tell me a little bit about that process. Well, first off, let's start with what is Pineland Express, because I don't think my audience knows. I know because of, our community. But if you would share what it is, and then, man, just tell us that whole story. I'd love to hear it.
Well, just to give your listeners context, while there are many instances in the military where you live in less than desirable conditions and put up with shit, there are moments where you get to live in places that you probably never thought you could afford. And for me, I was afforded the opportunity to live in the Ritz-Carlton for 6 months with 3 butlers. And it was during that moment where I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I wasn't complaining. I was happy. But I said to my wife, I'm like, there's got to be a way to provide this level of service and accommodations. I don't need the gold faucets and I don't need the butlers per se, but how can I provide that? Like, and here's the thing. So people understand another factor that drove me. I went through a divorce. I had 3 children. And for a period of time, I had all 3 children and then different variations thereof. Well, at one moment, I had to go to the Warrant Officer Advanced Course. I was trying to position my son to join the military, and I needed him to be with me. Okay. And I was staying in a shitty ass hotel, coincidentally, here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It was 200 square feet. It had a chair from 1980 in the corner, a 3-drawer dresser, and a queen size bed with a nightstand. And I bought him an inflatable mattress and I would put it up at nighttime. And when I woke up to get ready to go to school in the morning, I would deflate the mattress, tell him to get into bed and leave. And that in conjunction with the contrast of the Ritz-Carlton, which was the complete other end of the spectrum. I'm like, how do we get our service members to be closer to that side of the spectrum? Right. And so math, as I tell people, math is a subject that the only subject I'm good at without studying. I've always been good at it. And so I did a bunch of spreadsheets. And again, I came out one morning and I told my wife, I said, it's going to work. She said, what's it going to work? I said, we can charge people for military per diem rate, provide very upscale accommodations. And here's, I think, one of the differentiations. And I'm not trying to brag, but I am going to boast, a little bit, pat myself on the back, is that while I want to be profitable, I care just as much about the experience for the end user. So rather than trying to do constructor grade stuff, I wanted them to have the Ritz-Carlton experience. And so if that means that I only net $3,000 a month instead of $5,000 a month, I'm okay with that. Okay. A lot of people from the outside would tell me, that's dumb, dude. Like maximize your profit margins. You're not wrong, but at the same time, like to me, the experience is everything. And to kind of circle back and get back on track with what you're saying is, I was like, if I can provide upscale accommodations and preeminent customer service, I don't have to sell Pineland. Pineland sells itself, right? I want people to come here and literally say to themselves when nobody else is in the room, there's no effing way that I'm going to stay at another place.
Right.
And a short vignette that's associated with that particular thing is, as we know, many people in the military, because they do travel a lot, they latch onto all the point systems of different hotel chains and stuff. And so one of the rejections I got from some of my friends was like, hey, nobody's going to fucking stay at your place, bro, because you don't give them any points. And I was like, I hear you. And you're right. There are going to be a few people. But I said, I think I can provide a quality of service that is so far superior that they're willing to sacrifice the point to live in that type of comfort for an extended period of time. We're not talking about 2 nights. We're talking about courses that run 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, right? And so there was one guy particular, I won't name his name. He was in the same organization. And one of my buddies called him up and said, hey, yo, Bobby, that's not his real name. Bobby's coming to Fayetteville and he's going to stay in his place. He's a massive rewards points guy. And I was like, yo, get him on the phone. So I gave him a call and I was like, Bobby, listen to me. Here's my offer to you. Stay at my place for 3 nights. 3 nights. If you can look at me and honestly tell me this is not the best place you've ever stayed in your life, shake hands, still friends, you owe me nothing. I don't want a penny. I said, I just believe in our product that much. He stayed there for 4 months.
Love it.
Right? So you're asking, what is Pineland? Pineland is exactly what I've been saying. I wanted to provide upscale accommodations, preeminent customer service. And we have granite countertops, soft closed drawers, Bose sound bars, 75-inch tight TVs, Italian porcelain tiles, movie theater sofa seats with USB ports and shit like that. And I have king size. We spent more money on our bedding system than probably most people will. Now, I understand that comes at a cost. But I can tell you this, no one, knock on wood, in 5 years of being operational, no one has ever checked out.
I love that.
They haven't. When I've offered them that same scenario that I just told you about Bobby, right? Because the product sells itself. No one doesn't want to be comfortable. No one doesn't want to live in luxury, right? Even if you're a simpleton person, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy a massage chair, for example. Sure. Right?
Yeah.
So the reality is this. Hindsight being 2020, did I go a little bit batshit crazy? Yes, I did. But is any of my patrons sad about it? No, they're not. We have one shower that costs us a ridiculous amount of money. I'm telling you, there's probably $1 million homes. I'm being serious. I'm not fucking bullshit. There's probably $1 million homes that don't have showers like this. It's 7-foot quadruple shower heads, 18-inch rainfall showers from Delta. Like, this is a place where couples can work out problems, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to be mad coming out of there. It's absolutely amazing.
That's cool.
In fact, I've literally had people call us back up and they're saying, hey, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
You got to put me in the 7-foot shower room.
I want that one. Yeah. Oh, dude, that's so sick.
That's the whole concept, man. And while it's going to take me a little bit longer than it would have had I used Formica countertops and used contractor grade, everything else, it's organically grown to what it is today. And here's one thing, man. I could have done better at promoting it. We don't publicly market, right? I've used our network and it's organically grown. But I also told my wife, I said, I think that's a testament to the product that we created.
And no, it absolutely did. And I totally agree. And, one thing, Jamie, that I heard when you were talking about this is it's, part of business is strategy and planning, but it's also vision. And the vision exists for a reason. And I totally understand where you're coming from a business standpoint. And I agree, it's not the smartest move at all, but man, it aligned with your vision. So that's why you did it. It would have been out of alignment with your vision to throw contractor grade materials in there. It wouldn't have aligned with your vision.
Yeah.
And so regardless of if it netted you more cash flow, didn't matter. It wouldn't matter at that point. So that was one thing I heard. I love that. So let's talk about a little bit about how that deal went down. How you found the property, where the capital came from, and then where it's at right now.
As I said, I had kind of pitched the concept to, a dozen or so people. I already told you the outcome. Everybody's like, it's not going to work. Okay, cool. My best friend, since we were in elementary school, was very successful in the entertainment industry. And so he was significantly financially better off, right? And after I got rejected, ironically, he had texted or we had talked just not that short of time before this and said that he was interested in pivoting to real estate investment, but he can't do it because in Hollywood, California, a shack costs $1 million. And while he's well off, he's not well off enough so that he can, drop, $500,000 of cash on a 600 square foot place and then drop another 300 G's into it. So all of a sudden I had my light bulb moment and I was like, ding, ding, ding. And I was like, listen, I got an idea. I'm going to come over. And I literally flew on a plane and drove over to pitch him because, I know that we've gone through the pandemic and everybody's about Zoom calls and stuff like that. And I definitely think there's value there, but I'm absolutely about there is nothing that takes place of an in-person conversation. As we both know, it's typically widely believed that 80% of, communication is through body language. And so I need people to understand not only the vision, but the passion in which I believe this thing is capable. And so I went there, I pitched the concept. Of course, he had questions. Ultimately, he said, I'm in. And this is what I told him. Now, let me set the stage. I had zero experience. Zero. I changed a light bulb. I done maybe a couple door handles in my time, maybe even a fixture or two, but know nothing about the construction industry whatsoever. And that's part of the reason why I went to him, because he's known me for a very long time. And he even said, I know that the only way this thing's not going to happen is if you die, because it's just who you are. You're relentless in your pursuit. So I'm putting my money because I believe in you and I believe in the vision that you're telling me. I'm like, cool. So here's what I told him. I said, listen, I just need $500,000. I need $500,000 and I'll finish it in 18 months. It took 4 years and $1.4 million to complete. At one point, as many people probably experienced, he was like, I'm not giving you no more fucking money, dude. You're going to have to figure the rest out on your own. And I did. And I started talking to people in our line of work. And I wasn't trying to pitch them. People were asking me. And one of the first ones that happened right outside this property that I'm sitting at now. And I was telling one of my guys that I served with, and I could tell the wheels were spinning. And he looked at me and he goes, do you need more money? I'm like, yeah, of course I need money. He's like, I'll give you $100K. And I was like, you don't have a fucking $100K. And he's like, bro, I'm telling you right now. And he opens up his app and he not only had $100K, he had $300K.
Oh, nice.
And he's like, I'll give it to you right now. I was like, yo, wait.
Whoa.
Let me give you the paperwork. He's like, no, bro. He's like, I trust you. We're good. Right. And so at that point, in that moment in time, I came up with this little phrase that I like to say. It sounds weird, but it sticks. And that is trust times 2 equals money for you. If you trust the person and you trust the concept, they're going to give you the money. No one doesn't want to make money, and there's risk with everything. I don't give a shit if it's the stock market or the bank, or there's risk, varying degrees of, but as we know, with greater risk comes greater rewards, right? So he had the utmost confidence, just like my buddy did, to give me the money, and he believed in the vision. And because it was serving a purpose for the military, it's even a little bit more exciting, right? And so that's why I tell people, don't sell it, just tell the story. People love the story, right? And but here's the thing, it needs to be authentic, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're selling snake oil, people smell that shit, right?
Yeah.
So do I believe in this guy? And do I believe in his vision? And if the answer is yes, then that reduces the risk significantly in many people's minds. Right. So anyway, I had to fund the rest of it. And at that moment in time, when that happened with the 100K with him, I came back to my wife and I go, I'm not going to go to the banks. Well, why not? And I go, because here's the thing. I would rather, this is back to, some people are going to disagree. They're going to listen to your podcast. They're going to be like, this guy's fucking retarded. It's all good, man. It's all good. Everybody has their own methodology. I said, I would rather give a special forces brother 10 to 12% return on his money than give the bank 8%. Because they're still out there fighting the good fight. I'm helping this. His money was sitting in a fucking savings account, dude.
Ooh.
That's like 0.01.
All 300 of it.
Right. Man. There's one story. I won't get into it because it would digress me too much, but I gave this guy a 10% return on his money in 4 months. And I was writing him the check and he goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm giving you your money back. He goes, I don't want the money. He said, do you know that I had that in a bond that was earning me 1.9% interest for 5 years? He said, you made more money for me in 4 months than I did in 5 years. He's like, do it again. Do it again. And he's lended money to us 6 times on 6 different deals.
Oh, I love that, dude.
So back to me. Look, I'm not greedy, man. I want to win, but I want everyone to win. So, and I have another saying. I have many of them. And one of them I say is banks are skanks, right? And I say banks are skanks because here's the deal. When you need the money the most, they won't fucking give it to you. But the second you start getting some traction under you, people start reaching out. They're like, hey, Jamie, you need a $250,000 line of credit? You need a $500,000 line of credit? Bitch, I don't want your money.
I'm not going to lie. That absolutely is how I feel as well. I'm like, how come when I'm doing really good, they want to give the money, but like I have way better money at that point. But when I actually need it, they don't want to give me the money. Like that, I do use a lot of bank money. I have some amazing relationships with some bank lenders, but that no joke is the case for me too. I'm not going to lie.
Recently, we have done a couple loans, but that's because I was trying to bridge some gaps and stuff. And that's a different story. And I met an incredible banker, which is why the experience is much more enjoyable for me. But generally speaking, I typically only do private money. And I do private money because I want them to win as well. And if I'm consistently helping them earn money on their thing, then they're earning money and we're getting money. So anyway, back to the Pineland story, first property. I told you, man, I talk a lot. So anyway, I was able to fund it. It took 4 years to complete it. Gazillion mistakes, not enough time to talk about them. But part of the reason why it took so long is because I didn't know what I was doing. The second reason why it took so long is because I went too fast and I started more projects on top of those projects and got myself so inundated that I couldn't keep it moving. The good news story is in February of 2024, the property appraised for $2.27 million.
Oh, man.
So if you do the math, we won. So even though I made a tremendous amount of mistakes, and even though I grossly underestimated the time and I grossly underestimated the amount of money I was going to cost us, we won, right? Which goes back to many seasoned investors. You make the money at the purchase price not at the sale price. We got it at such a steal. Like when I told my buddy in California, we were going to buy 12 units for $300,000. He's like, that's not possible.
He's like, nah, no chance.
And so one thing I'll add context to the story is you said, well, how did you find the property? Once I flew out there and got his okay, I started searching product. And when I get excited about something, I can't sleep, bro. I was sleeping like 2-3 hours a night, right? I'm laying in bed at 2:00 in the morning and this one pops up. It had been on the market for less than 12 hours. And I'm like, this is fucking it. I woke up at 6 a.m. I drove my car there. I parked it at the top of the hill because it's on like a little incline. And I called my sister. I'm like, I found it. She's like, how do you know? And I was like, it's it. I'm like, yeah, I know. We're going to do due diligence. I got it. I'm just telling you, this is the mother freaking property. I waited till 9 a.m. in the morning, called my buddy, and he said, put an offer in. The rest is history.
That's such a powerful story. And what I really heard from that was your resilience and your determination and your just complete unwillingness to quit, man. Unwillingness to quit. Project went so much longer than you anticipated. You pushed through, man. And you proved to be victorious. All right, we're kind of running short on time here. So as we transition, man, I find myself saying this a lot with all my guests, man, because they have so much good stuff to say. I'm like, I wish we could go a little longer. As we sort of wrap up now, why don't you tell me, I know you've made several more acquisitions since then, sort of like after that key property, what did it lead you to? Sort of summarize where you're at now and what's on the horizon for you.
So as I've kind of suggested multiple times throughout this conversation, one of my mistakes was after we got the ball rolling on that, I'm like, well, I'm going to build a construction company. Nice. I'm going to build a property management company. I'm going to build a housekeeping company. I'm going to do an interior design company. And I just kept building shit. And a lot of that was sucking time and energy, right? One great book that you probably heard of by Gary Keller, it's called The One Thing, right? And I would pitch this book to, here's another problem, Devin, is like, I'm really great at giving people advice of things that I know is supposed to happen. And then I'm like, hey, pot, you're the kettle calling this person black, right? Yeah. And so, because you're inside the picture frame and again, my excitement is just like, let's fucking go. So anyway, I ended up taking on too much shit. So to oversimplify the answer to your question is the season that we're in is we're trying to divest from a lot of companies. We've already shut about 2 down. We have nearly 20 entities. Some of those are just entities for real estate acquisition, but other of them are business that are in theory supposed to be operational. But again, they're sucking time and resources. And this is what I told people. One of my greatest things that I've learned over the past, we'll call it 12 to 18 months, is that I'm the poster child for spread an inch deep and a mile wide, right? And so I like to use a lot of analogies and metaphors. And so what I told people is I said, I'm in the proverbial boat that's sinking and I'm really good at plugging holes, but I'm not doing anything exceptionally well. All I'm doing is saving everything from drowning, sinking. And so I'm really trying to refocus my time and energy on what produces revenue and where am I supposed to be. And faith has grown increasingly as part of my life. And so obviously there's a spiritual aspect to reflecting on that. And it's like, what does God want me to do? Where am I supposed to be doing? Am I in the right position? You know, am I going after my own desires versus how can I serve better?
Yeah.
And so, right now, as you know, I started a mastermind group with 3 other veterans called Military to Entrepreneur. And while it has the word military in there, which a lot of people are like, oh, that means I can't join no, it's open to everybody. But the reason why we called it that is because obviously all 4 of us have a combined total years of service of 77 years. And so we're bringing military tenacity and grit and discipline and all those things that a lot of us got ingrained in us throughout that to that. And if you like that, then this is the place to be. It doesn't matter if you ever served. And so that's a huge piece of it. And I just want to take a moment to say, like, another phrase that I say all the time that I learned earlier on is, do you want 10% of a watermelon or 100% of a grape? And so I created my own consulting business and transformational speaking business early in January, but then I ran into these guys mid 2024, and I put that kind of on temporary pause because I told my wife, I said, look, if I can combine with 3 other military dudes, like how much more can we provide? I don't need to have 100% of the profit margins, right? I just want it to be successful. I want to genuinely help other people. And of course I want to profit and do better. But again, I'm not super obsessed with like, I need every single penny. But if my personal consulting business could have gotten to the point where we were earning, let's say $2 million a year versus earning $15 million a year with these guys, that's the 10% of a watermelon versus 100% of a grape. Like do it with them. And the other analogy that I use is, as you know, lifting a telephone pole in selection process is like, how far can one person carry a telephone pole? I don't know, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet. But if I'm carrying with 4, a mile, 2 miles, 3 mile. So anyway, right now what we're doing is we have 2 projects still going on. One is a 9-unit apartment, which is going to be probably one of our most premium products that we're producing. And it's going to be located near downtown Fayetteville. Dude, it's going to be off the chain. It's going to be to the nines. I think it will be one of our hottest things. And then we have the property I'm sitting on right now, which we need to get back to as well. And so I'm focusing on that, continuing to build out the portfolio to support the boutique hotel concept for military. And then I'm trying to put time and energy into the military to entrepreneur stuff. There are different other things that are kind of trickling, but in 2025, my hope is to get a full-time executive assistant so that I can get rid of a lot of these tasks that are consuming too much of my time.
Absolutely, man. Having recently done that, I 100% agree with you. That's awesome, Jamie. And like you said, man, for this year's season, divesting some of those things. So I hear in what you're saying that you are actively developing clarity on like what it is you want. Like you had mentioned the faith component, which resonates with me as well. Like, am I just doing what I want, or is like this my purpose? Am I serving how I'm intended to serve? Which it in and of itself is a journey. Mm-hmm. I love it, man. I've enjoyed this so much. I wish we could go longer. I'm sure I'll have you on again at some point. But as we wrap up here, if you would let our listeners know where they can connect with you, put a plug in for Military to Entrepreneur, let them know how they can connect with that community, and any other ways to connect with you.
Yeah, if you want to connect with me directly, the one that I monitor the most is probably Facebook. I have Instagram, I have X and all the other platforms, but there's just not enough time in a day. So I typically spend what little time on social media I do on Facebook. Military to Entrepreneur, we have a website. It's Mil2Ent. That's MIL, the number 2, ENT.com. And so if people are interested, they can check it out. Right now, here's the deal, man. It's $100 a month. And so I'm going to plug it real quick if you don't care, if you don't mind. It's $100 a month. I'm telling you right now, I'm in high level masterminds that we pay $12,000 to be in, right? So this is incredibly low entry point, but we're trying to provide tremendous amount of value. And here's where I think a lot of people get hung up, to include myself before. Why am I going to pay that money to be in that group? It doesn't make any sense to me. Well, what I realize is, back to one of my earlier comments, you are the total sum of the 5 people you hang around the most, is I want to be around winners. And I want to be around people that are ahead of where I'm at, because that's going to push me more, and they're going to have a world of knowledge. And while there's many things that contribute to being successful, in my humble opinion, I think the greatest factor is proximity, right? Relationship capital. Like, who do you know that knows the answer? Who do you know who knows somebody who knows the answer, right? And all of the things that are associated with that. And that is tremendous. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested and you want to be around a group of, just grit grinding people that want to get after it and experience different and share different things and get connected, I think you should join. And I can tell you this, we've already made, once we get to a certain number, we're going to raise the price, and then we're going to raise the price, and then we're going to raise the price. Not to be butt faces, but the more that people, then the more valuable. And not only that, but we want to make sure that we're giving the most that we can to people. So if you're interested, I would highly encourage you to join now. And if you check my Facebook, you'll even see that there's a discount code for this month.
Awesome. Love it, Jamie. Well, there you have it, folks. Jamie Tilke. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time.